All right, we are live. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a fantastic couple of days. We have a lot of news to cover, so we're going to get into it very quickly here. First, I'm just going to repost my streams so that everybody knows that we are on, and then we will get started. Okay, Lahoma, let's do this, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good today. Mostly just Kursk stuff. We have some important news updates from some different areas on the map, some important map updates. But really, we're kind of in this weird sort of period of time where the first phase of the Ukrainian operation into Kursk is now done. We've just entered into the second week of operations in this region, and Ukraine has taken a lot of casualties. They've been hit very hard. There's a decision to be made now, and we're going to talk about what that decision is. The advances have stopped coming very quickly, like they were on the first couple of days. The information warfare sphere is now a lot more controlled by the Russians, so the Ukrainians aren't able to claim victories that aren't necessarily real victories. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, so we're going to get into that in the Kursk region. But other than that, guys, just remember that if you want to find more of my work, you can do so on Patreon. There will be an hour and 30-minute video getting posted with Alex. It is done. It is being processed right now on Patreon, and it will go up immediately after this, as well as episode number 11, I believe, of Demonetized will be free for all free users. So go join my Patreon. You can find that link in the description of the YouTube video, and go check out my Telegram and Twitter pages. And if you are watching me on YouTube, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. It helps me get seen by the algorithm and gets more people in the chat. Better conversation, better questions, better for the channel, better for everybody. All right, without further ado, let's go get into it. What's up from San Diego? Hello from San Diego. Greetings from Southern California, which I believe is also around San Diego. So kind of weird that you guys are repeating yourselves. Hello from Canada. Welcome from Canada. Hello from Denmark. Hello from California. Guys, we talked about this. We already had one California. Lay off, all right? All right. Let's see. Oh, and we got our first question here. Cranky tripped so that Kursk may fly space blad. That is fantastic. I might steal that for a tweet, my guy. That is unbelievably funny. Really appreciate that humor. Queens, New York, Brooklyn, New York, guys. Not the same place again. Come on, we got to do better. And Ireland, that's what's up. Portugal, Minsk, awesome, guys. Awesome. Okay, let's head over to the good old map, shall we? The good old map. All right, so in the Kursk region, we do have some small Ukrainian advances. I don't know necessarily, I can't consider this territory controlled by Ukraine. I would consider most of this controlled by Ukraine with not a lot of gray area and Russians running around inside of it. But these areas, like here in the city of Stuzda and down here near Kurakhove, all three of these are sort of like the Ukrainians have been geolocated in this region. But if we remember, there was an ambush up here. There was an ambush down over here. There's been plenty of casualties sustained in this region. So a lot of this is just sort of gray zone. The Ukrainians have a presence here, but they're not necessarily in this area. And guys, remember, this is over probably, in terms of updates, I think this is over the last 5 or 6 days. This has been all of the updates. So really, the Ukrainian progress up in the north here has slowed significantly. And it's the reality starting to hit that, Ukraine did not necessarily force any major rotations out of the Russians into this area. The whole idea was that Russians that were down in these regions would be pulled out. The front line would ease up, the assaults would stop, and all of those Russians would be pushed up here to deal with this. The Russians did not respond in that manner. They moved mobile reserves, which they had, and conscripts into the region because, if you don't know, conscripts are not allowed to fight in Ukraine, in the SMO. That is a legal issue in Russia. Conscripts are actually only allowed to fight on Russian soil, defending Russian territory. Conscripts, it's a forced conscription. It has happened every year since probably like World War II, maybe even before then. I don't know when the Russians started doing this, but they conscript young men. You have mandatory military service. And then after a year, you become a reserve, and those reserves can be brought back up. They have military training. That's how Russia's reserve program works. Those reserves have been sent into this area along with some other military units like the 810th Marine Infantry Brigade, which the Ukrainians claimed were completely destroyed around Ugledar. They have been spotted up in this region, and they are taking heads literally. So that's what's going on up here. A lot is happening, but in terms of actual progress for the Ukrainians in Kursk, not much. Basically, all of this could be represented by the first couple of days of operations in this region, and it's just completely stopped. One thing, though, that the Ukrainians have done fantastically, and you cannot take this away from them, is that the Ukrainians have completely dominated the information space here. They went in and they were capturing settlements. They did pretty much, like I said, they did most of this blue area on day one. This was kind of the initial push in. It's not really that far. It's only, a couple miles here, 6 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles, anywhere around. So all drivable within an hour, right? It's not this massive, expansive area. People are like saying something like, oh, it's 1,000 square kilometers. That's fine, but I mean, it's not that. It's definitely less than that, but it's not full control of 1,000 square kilometers. It's also not really anything substantial in terms of territory. It's 1,000 kilometers, but it's all 10 kilometers off of the border. So, I mean, it's just a small border incursion still. And the Ukrainians haven't achieved any objectives. They have not cut the E38 highway, which is a strong Russian logistics route. They did not capture the NPP near Legrov, and they did not push up and capture Kharkiv, which would have been a big big Ukrainian victory and a staging off point to push into other areas. The Russians have held Kharkiv, and they have held the Ukrainians. They might not control it anymore, but they at least held the Ukrainians in Stuzda, right? So Kursk is becoming this molasses. It's really bogging the Ukrainians down now, and it's only going to get worse. The losses we've seen have been absolutely horrendous. If you guys want to know why my demonetized video was an hour and a half, most of it is Kursk operation stuff. Just in the last 36 hours, I actually have been posting quite a lot. If you go on my Twitter, you'll see, or my Telegram, you'll see all of these losses. The Ukrainians have reportedly, we know of 2, but have reportedly lost 3 HIMARS on video. A 4th one has been claimed, which we are waiting for, probably going to come out tomorrow. All of those in the Sumy region. I'm going to show you what those drones or what those HIMARS were doing in that area. But the Ukrainians are losing a lot of valuable systems. We've seen Tunguskas, Buks, lots of radars. A Challenger 2 has also now been destroyed in Russia, which is just hilarious that they didn't use them in Ukraine, the 13 that they had or whatever the entire time. They lost 1 in the counteroffensive that we know about, and then they just lose 1 in Russia, and it exploded tremendously. It was the Challenger is the biggest piece of shit, I think, in terms of Western battle tanks, Western main battle tanks. But yeah, so lots of losses. Be sure to go check out that demonetized video because I go over the HIMARS losses. I go over everything we've seen in the Kursk region, and it is a really good video. Alex joins me for that, and he is autistic about weapon systems and stuff. So it's a good time. We had a good time filming that. It will be up right after this. Actually, let me go click right here. Yeah, it's done. So I'll upload it immediately after this. All right. Now, moving down to the New York front, we have the Russian armed forces have advanced through most of New York and now control about 80% of the city. It is expected that New York and also this salient right here will fall shortly. Actually, we did just get a geolocation. I forgot to do it, so I'll do it live for you guys now, right here. And it does look like the Russians have captured this electrical substation. We got a geolocation from Cream, which is a Russian geolocation account on Telegram, but I will just put this in green for now, just so you guys can see it. We got a geolocation that the Russians are in the substation. So now you can see how this whole area right here is becoming a very, very tight salient. There's probably almost no Ukrainians, and really what the Russians just have to do is meet each other here, and then this whole thing is going to fill in. So on this front, just get ready for something like this to be happening in the coming days. Another sizable Russian advance through a heavily defended area. And I'm just doing this so you guys can kind of see the front real quick, because what I'm talking about is that it's going to look like this. Then the Russians are going to have Nelipivka in a very, very difficult situation. They should capture Nelipivka, and now they'll be attacking Toretsk from both the south and the east at the same time. It'll put Toretsk into a terrible, terrible position. And then once Toretsk falls, obviously this entire salient becomes the next sort of New York salient. This becomes the area that the Russians are going to look to close. So significant advances here, again, in the New York area. We are looking at very slow updates in this area. So I do believe that the situation has deteriorated here for the Ukrainians in a more significant way than what's being shown. Moving over to the Pokrovsk section, I'm actually just going to turn off the fortified lines for now, just so you guys can see. We can go over the updates, and then we'll talk about the significance. So there was a small Russian advance into Novotoretsk. This is not a village here. There is almost no structure. I don't know. That's nothing. Nothing. It's just a name on a map. I think it used to probably be a place. Looks like there used to be something here and maybe something over here. But just a name on a map. The important part is this fortification in this region has been captured. And if you look, it is the last fortification that we at least have knowledge about on this side of the Toretsk River and this side of Hordivka. So again, expect this pocket to fall shortly, and then expect Hordivka to be threatened from both the south, the east, and the north as the Russians approach one of the final remaining defense lines before they enter Mihrad and Pokrovsk proper. This is going to move very quick, guys. This salient right here, this push out by the Russians right here is going to move extremely quickly, okay? So just so you know, I think that the Russians will probably be in Pokrovsk by October now. So just be very, very vigilant watching this area. Okay. Now moving down here, remember these updates come over 3 days. So this is 3 days worth of updates. This is not just 1 day's worth of updates. The Russians have advanced into Hordivka and now control about 1/3 of the city, with half of it being either under Russian control or in gray zone. Hordivka is going to fall. Hordivka might actually fall before this northern salient falls, just because of how quickly the Russians are progressing through this settlement. And I told you that the Russians would progress quickly through this settlement. According to Ukrainian reports now, Russia is enjoying a 10-to-1 artillery advantage on this front, as well as a 3-to-1 manpower ratio advantage, which is what is usually required for offensive operations. It's not usually what we see from the Russians in the SMO, but that is what we're seeing now, at least on this section of the front. The Ukrainians are raising the alarm bells because, I mean, obviously, this is crazy. This is 12 square miles that has been captured by the Russians in 3 days on this front through these fortifications. This is a collapse, guys. This is what when I talk about a collapse, this is what I'm talking about. This is a collapse of a tactical nature that could lead to a strategic collapse that would be a nightmare for the entire eastern flank for Ukraine. And specifically when I'm talking about fortifications, you can see this fortification here, this fortification here, this fortified line has been compromised, this fortification has been captured, this fortification south of Zeleny has been captured, and this string of fortifications is now going to be captured very in quick succession. Boink, 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 boink. Remember, I talked about how all the Russians had to do was interdict this road, preferably at this spot right here by this driver's license office, the MVD for Ukraine right here. If that section is cut or comes under fire control and this defense line is captured, this entire salient right here will just collapse. There is only one other supply route into this area, and that comes through these towns down here near Kalibrited, and then up through this road into this area. But it's going to be incredibly hard with the Russians right here firing on this road constantly, and drone coverage and everything. So yeah, expect this salient to collapse fairly soon. The Russians just need to advance a couple more fields south here through this defense line, and will cut this road and make it basically impossible for the Ukrainians to sustain themselves in this region. So yeah, get ready for this entire pocket. We're talking Novozeleny, Zavitny, Komishkova, and Piche, all to fall to the Russians here shortly. But more importantly, not so much the settlements, these fortifications right here. These are the big ones. Remember, these are the ones I've been talking about since Novoselivka, Pershe fell up here a month ago almost. These are the big ones. All right. But yeah, significant advances. The Russians have captured Mykolivka, Orlivka, and Zurovka here. Yeah. All right. The final update is just a small one. Just here outside of Krasnohorivka, the Russians have advanced. Remember, I talked about them just needing to basically push the Ukrainians out of this portion of the village. I imagine the defense line will eventually be something for the Ukrainians like this. Something like that. Keeping the Russians contained on this side of this reservoir. River. Yeah, it's a river. It's just really wide right here because they dammed it up. Okay. That is it for the map updates. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and start getting some questions in. I'm going to go over some articles here that I have that I just wanted to talk about. Okay. Ukrainian officials urge civilians to evacuate Pokrovsk as Russian troops close in. Military authorities in the eastern Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk have urged civilians to speed up their evacuation because the Russian army is quickly closing in on what has for months been one of Moscow's key targets. Okay. Well, I don't know how they know it's been Moscow's key targets for months. Do they watch my program? If they watch my program, then it makes sense that they would know that. But to be honest, Pokrovsk has not looked like one of Russia's key targets for months. This is another propaganda tool, using language as propaganda. If you say that they've been trying to get there for months, right, it makes it seem like they're failing to achieve their goals because it's taking them so long to get there. It makes the Ukrainians look like they're better defenders, this, that, and the other. The Russians have progressed from Orchitny to where they are now outside of Pokrovsk in like a month. So it really has not been their goal. I mean, you could say anything's the goal. Kiev is the goal. And they've been trying to get there for 2.5 years. It's a stupid argument, right? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't really matter. But that's the situation, and that's how these outlets tend to phrase it to make it seem like the situation is better. Military authorities in the eastern Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk on Friday urged civilians to speed up their evacuation because the Russian army is closing in on what has been Moscow's key target for months. Pokrovsk officials said in a Telegram post that Russian troops are advancing at a fast pace, which is an understatement. With every passing day, there is less and less time to collect personnel, belongings, and leave for safer regions. Collapse. When you don't have time to evacuate your men properly, you don't have time to set up new defense lines. That's what a collapse is. That is a unplanned retreat from an area. Ukrainian troops have been trying to divert the Kremlin's military focus away from the front line in Ukraine by launching a bold cross-border incursion into Kursk. It's always a bold cross-border incursion, right? The Russian full-scale invasion is never bold. But Ukraine's invasion is bold. But Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky warned on Thursday that Pokrovsk and other nearby towns in the Donetsk region were facing the most intense Russian assaults, and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The whole reason for the Kursk operation, other than maybe getting better negotiating deals, which has completely failed, as we've seen from Putin's speech, is that they were trying to pull Russian reserves away from the east where they are advancing, because the Ukrainians don't want to lose the east. The whole war has been about the east, the east, the east, the east, the east, the east. Let me remind you guys. All right. Goose, an aerial reconnaissance soldier with Ukraine's 68th Separate Airborne Brigade, who is helping defend the city, told the Associated Press by phone on Friday that he faces the same deadly monotony every day. The same deadly monotony every day. From his position, he flies a drone to identify moving Russian infantrymen. The boom of a mortar follows after he relays coordinates. Glazing here before we get to the actual important part. Since the Kursk operation, I haven't noticed any changes. The Russians have the same tactics of infantry assaults. They're moving, advancing, said Goose, who spoke only using a call sign. So there we go. That's the key right there, right? After 14 days or 13 days, or it's been about 2 weeks of the Kursk operation, what has come out of it? Nothing, right? They didn't capture the MPP. They haven't captured a major city. They haven't forced massive Russian troop rotations. They've given Russia the excuse to stop negotiations and do whatever they want to Ukraine again. Again, another casus belli. Ukraine has completely destroyed its relations with China. They told China that they were going to work towards negotiations, and this is a clear sign that they don't want negotiations at all. They are shooting themselves in the foot constantly. And while the tactical operation may have been successful, on a strategic level, guys, it is an Ardennes offensive. It's the same thing. It's pointless loss of life that has no real ability to change the war besides a massive enemy collapse, which didn't occur. Right? Now you're going to lose Pokrovsk. The Russians are already in the urban conglomerate. I told you guys. Watch, I'll take us back over to the map. Once the Russians are in this urban area, I mapped it out for you guys too here. Remember, it was like this. I said, bink, 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 like that, right? Once the Russians breach this area, let's go orange. Once the Russians get into this area, right, it's over. And look how close they are. I mean, they are already in here. This map is not, actually, I should do it like this so it's more accurate. Come down here and go dink, dink, like that. Okay, so the Russians are now in this area, right? They've breached into the urban conglomerate of Pokrovsk. Once the Russians are in and get established and they can start launching, they can start staging here and start launching off. Because right now, the Russians are really using Orchitny as their big staging position, right? There's no big settlements in here. So the Russians have to come a very long ways, and then they deploy. As soon as the Russians enter into Horivka and start establishing themselves and push the Ukrainians out and mostly get into this defense line right here, the Ukrainians are just going to have no way of pushing the Russians out. There's going to be no way of reversing this, and it's going to accelerate because we know that the Russians fight so well once they get into the urban area. This person asked map ? I don't know what you're asking map about. If you're asking about whose map it is, this is my map. And you can find that on my mapping Twitter, which is Calibrated Maps, or you can go on my Telegram and it's there as well. It's interesting to see how you never hear the names of Russian and Ukrainian commandos in important sectors like Kupiansk, Chasiv Yar, and Toretsk. Yeah, it's all OPSEC stuff. They just don't want somebody identified and then identifying a unit that's in an area based off of that individual, stuff like that. Demilitary summary just mentioned that Sursky could be killed. Yeah, I'm always very cautious with these because usually they're not true, the whole NATO bunker thing. But yes, there was a report that I believe in the Poltava region, there is a command post, perhaps in the Sumy region. I'm not sure. I think it was in the Poltava region, somewhere around here, was struck by a Russian Iskander and could have potentially resulted in the loss of General Sursky. I do doubt it, though. I never listen to those things. I never add them into my analysis. If it's true, we'll know about it soon enough. Yeah, Dima does like his speculations. I like Dima, but Dima does buy into some of the more outstanding stories I do find from time to time. And mostly I think that's just because of the sourcing that he trusts. Some of the sourcing that he trusts is very pro-Russian, which is okay. I think pro-Russian sourcing is usually better than Ukrainian sourcing for sure. But he does tend to do the whole NATO bunker thing, which I just stay away from. The fighting for seems important. Fighting that nobody is talking about, or is Kurakhove not as important of a city as people think? I think you're talking about in the. Are you talking about up here, or are you talking about Kurakhove down here? Guys, if you could just put the oblast that you're referring to as well. Oh yeah, you're talking about right here. Yeah, no, this is important. The reason why you're not hearing a lot about the fighting is just because there's not a lot of Russian assaults in this region, right? If there's not a lot of Russian activity, then you're not going to hear about a lot of fighting and what's going on. But yes, this area is of critical importance because if the Russians can reach this reservoir and put pressure on Kharkiv, then the entire Ugledar front becomes extremely threatened. Same goes for Pokrovsk on just a wider scale, but you can still keep the southern direction supplied through, Pokrovsk down the highway, down the E50, and then down to this area. So not as important, but from a locality perspective, yes, it's a vital importance, especially to this area right here. It's of vital importance. Yeah, but you don't hear a lot of talking about it just because there's not a lot of fighting going on. Or there's fighting, but it's all positional, and it's not like Russians assaulting like they are in Pokrovsk, or the Ukrainians are in Kharkiv, or the Russians are in Chasiv Yar, New York, Kupiansk, those sort of areas. All right, I'm going to do another article here. Kursk attack will force Russia to negotiate, Zelensky says. Goofy, these guys are probably dead. Goofy, right? Saying that this attack is somehow going to force Russia's hand in negotiation. If they would have secured an MPP or something like that, I still don't even think so. I think that's such a red line being crossed that Russia can't stand for that. You're not going to negotiate with terrorists, right? So literally the exact opposite has happened. Putin came out and said that there will now be no negotiations. We're going to solve this through military means. We are now looking at a war. This is no longer an SMO. Even if they call it an SMO, it's not. I don't think it's been an SMO for a long time, but it is by definition now not an SMO. Conscripts are involved. Russian nuclear facilities are being threatened. Russian territories being threatened. This is no longer an SMO. This is not a special military operation. You could call it a counterterrorism operation if you want, but I'm going to call it a war because that's what it looks like to me. And I think that the war is going to end with the complete destruction of the Ukrainian regime now. It's no longer. I had said for a long time, guys. I had been making these claims that let me zoom out here because this makes sense. I had told you guys, if a deal comes up, I said this in probably June or July, if a deal comes up that secures sanction relief, secures NATO neutrality, and secures these 4 oblasts, I think Russia would have taken it at the time. I think that was the deal that they made with them. I think that was the best deal that the Ukrainians were going to get. And now the only way this ends with this stupid move right here, this dumb mistake. It's just so dumb. It's dumb for the Ukrainian state. It's not dumb for the Ukrainian regime or the West because we don't care about Ukraine in the slightest. We don't give a shit. Ukraine burns, we're fine by that. It's actually probably going to be cheaper for us if Ukraine completely burns. And we can use Russia as the forever enemy in Europe that we need. We're either going to be fighting wars in Eastern Europe. What did they call that? East Asia. We're going to be fighting wars in East Asia, or we're going to be fighting wars in What are the in 1984? There's the two regions. There's the Pan-Pacific or whatever, and then the Eurasian. So that's we're just going to be going back and forth. We got our boogeyman now. If Ukraine capitulates and Russia captures a bunch of Ukraine, we're going to say, oh, the Russians are pushing right up onto NATO's borders. It's so scary. That kind of stuff. That's what's going to happen. So Ukraine staying together, and the U.S. and NATO and the EU needing to financially support this destitute, demographically ruined state. Yeah, we don't want that. We'd much prefer that Russia takes it up to here. This becomes whatever, or Russia takes whatever, and then we say, oh, look, Russia's this big bag boogeyman on our border. It just makes it easier for us. But I was saying that the Russians would have taken that deal. Now, no longer. Now it's going to be the death of the regime. It has to be. It's unfortunate. I had held out hope that negotiations would happen or something like that, but it's over. They don't want it, so they're not going to get it. Eurasia, East Asia, and Oceania. Yeah, thank you. It's been so long since I've read that book. So long. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. And you're going to be inundated with endless propaganda that you won't be able to sift through because it's all going to be supported by AI bullshit. It's done, dude. Humans are done. We are. This is the final stage of the human species before we hand it over to AI. We're just the sex organs for computers, basically. Do you think that the 20K force that went into Kursk incursion could have stopped the Russians at Pokrovsk? I think they could have slowed them down. I don't think that they could have stopped them. This is what I said in my last live stream, was that the Ukrainians had two choices. They could have done this Kursk incursion, or they could have died by 1,000 cuts in the east. The death by 1,000 cuts option allows room for negotiations. The death by offensive operations option results in no negotiations and a much worse outcome for Ukraine. Those were their two options, but both were losing options. So they went with probably what I honestly would have done. I don't know if I would have gone into Kursk, but I would have done something asymmetrical like this and caused some very, very big issues between not only the U.S. and the United States and Europe, but also Russia and the United States, Russia and Europe, and Russia and Ukraine. That's what I would be trying to do if I was Zelensky, and that's exactly what he's going to try to do, right? So I thought maybe Ukraine could get away with these 4 oblasts. No longer. I'm going to say minimum is going to be half the country now. When you look at it, what did the Russians say? They said if we were going to face incursions from this region, we were going to make a sanitation zone. And now I think that Kharkov, Sumy, and Chernigov are all going to need to be captured, basically, at this point. And at that point, why wouldn't you just take Poltava and make the river your line, right? How do you get the unmonetized version of... I'm confused. Maybe you're talking to somebody else. If you're talking about the Patreon, you just go and sign up as a free member. It's free. You just create an account and then create a free membership, and then you can watch the episodes on like a 1-week delay or a 2-week delay. If that's what he's talking about. I don't know. The river is a good line. Yeah, here we go. Are the Russians trying to take Vovchansk or just hold their position there? You don't really hear about Kharkiv anymore. Yeah, but you don't hear about it because the propaganda stopped, right? Actually, the Russians, I didn't actually talk about this. Thank you for reminding me. The Russians have made a small advance out of Bogged into this area of Lipsy, I think it's actually technically considered. The Russians were here originally. The Ukrainians did their offensive operation here. This is how much they achieved. It's been half reduced. Remember, we saw a lot of Ukrainians dying in this region as well in offensive operations. No, this was exactly what we saw happen in the Kursk front. It's exactly the same thing. The Russians pushed in with a size, with a 15,000 or so sized contingent. The Ukrainians collapsed on the border because it's incredibly hard to hold fortifications on the border. They fell back to their first defense line. The Russians entered. The Russians stopped offensive operations the second they ended up holding most of this by day 3 or so. And then the Ukrainians started counterattacking after a week, and the line hasn't moved at all, like at all. The Ukrainians are still dying in this salient here across the Oskil River, but the lines have not moved at all. That's the exact same thing that's going to end up happening here, except the disposition of forces for these two sides are completely different. The Russians had reserves while still advancing in this area to pull Ukrainian reserves, which are not abundant, up to Vovchansk to do offensive operations and prevent a massive Russian breakthrough in this area, right? The Russians then stopped as soon as the Ukrainians started attacking, went on the defensive, started attriting the Ukrainians here, and we see this shit down here. Literally, since the Vovchansk operation, we've seen like this entire chunk go to the Russians. And it's massive because of its implications in terms of defense lines and what it means for the Ukrainian defense in the region. So that's what happened here. Along with that, obviously, we have all of New York being captured, the Toretsk salient basically collapsing, the Russians advancing into Chasiv Yar proper, and obviously this Pishani advance here by the Russians. So lots happened from this. But when the Ukrainians do it, what happened when the Ukrainians do it? Think about the logic here. The Ukrainians were losing this because of what was happening in Vovchansk, right? And I've actually been talking to some people, and part of the whole blamed it. The part of the whole the Russians planned it. They knew this was coming, sort of thing. There's a couple of interesting points that I actually think that I should talk about. The Belarusian military decided about a month before, it was sometime in July, that they were going to reduce the number of Belarusian troops on the border with Ukraine, stating that Ukraine was not a threat to Belarus. This ended up freeing up a few of the brigades that ended up going into Sumy region and then into Kursk region that were on the border, defending the border. Immediately after the Kursk region incursion, the Belarusian military went back on high alert. Potentially, you could say because, Russia just got invaded, so why wouldn't the Belarusians go back on high alert? Totally fine, totally an acceptable explanation for that. But why did they go off high alert after 2.5 years in the first place? The timing was very weird. The fact that all of those forces were able to be freed up, they were transferred to the Sumy region. Prior to the Kursk incursion, we saw, Mesano is a claimed Ukrainian in the region who was talking about this Sumy incursion for a long time. He was saying things were wrong in the Sumy region. Things weren't adding up. There's a lot of Ukrainian equipment and troops here. What's going on? This, that, or the other. He was talking about it when nobody else was talking about it. He also talked about how Russian strikes in this region had increased tenfold in the past couple of weeks. So the Ukrainians moved all this stuff in. They were getting hammered. I don't think the Russians necessarily knew that they were going to go on the offensive here. I don't necessarily think the Russians knew where they were going to attack. I think that the Ukrainians caught the Russians off guard, exploited the advance, and captured this amount of territory, which is equally, it's pretty much equal to this. It's a little bit more, but when you look at the actual territory being captured, this is like nothing. This is nothing. There's like no structures in these towns either, outside of like residential houses. No like high-rise buildings, no anything like that to offer good defense. These are all just small border towns that amounted to something like 2,000 population. The only major urban area that they've actually entered, and again, not really that major, is Sudza, which is exactly like Vovchansk. Came just across the border, pushed in, got into the urban area, which this urban area is way more built up. You can see it's pretty crazy, actually, the industrial area and the high-rise area and everything. So It's practically the same thing, except the Russians didn't respond to this the way the Ukrainians responded to this. The Russians did not move reserves from the front line that were assaulting over here to defend this. They brought in conscripts and they brought in free units to deal with this. It seems like it is being dealt with, maybe not reversed. The Ukrainians could hold this for a very long time. I say let them. Why would you want to hold territory in a salient and over enemy are on enemy territory with no air defense coverage, no anything like that? It's ridiculous. Shuzda, Shmuzda. Yeah, but it's two completely different things. The Ukrainians basically tried to copy the Russians in Vovchansk and failed. I honestly think the goal was the nuclear power plant up here. I do think that was the again, I don't know where it is. It's just in this region somewhere. I need to look it up and Google it so I can point it out on the map. It's the second time I've done this. But there's a nuclear power plant right up here by Lugov. So I think that was the initial goal. I think they were supposed to reach it by this time. Obviously, that has failed. They are now striking bridges along the rivers here, trying to prevent Russian logistics from making it down. Probably not going to work, though. Okay. What's your take on the escalation in the Middle East? I think that we are looking at a regional war that Israel wants like nobody's business, because the political situation in Israel is becoming so bad that the only way that Bibi is going to stay out of jail is by going to war. I think that he desperately wants war. I think that we could very well see a Gaza peace agreement here soon, which would be a big win for Iran, I think. Holding out on striking until a peace agreement is reached is going to look very good on the international stage. It's going to look very good in the Muslim world. But I don't know. It's seeming like nobody is really going to benefit from that war in any way, and the only reason it's happening is because a few elites in Israel and some neocons in Washington want it to happen. But I'm getting the feeling that cooler heads are going to prevail. I think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see a response by Hezbollah, a response by Iran, and it's going to end up the same way it did last time. Because realistically, when you're looking at it from the Iranian position, the Western Bloc is becoming weaker constantly. The Eastern Bloc is becoming stronger. Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, BRICS, that grouping, India, that grouping is becoming much stronger in comparison to the West. Going to war right now and reducing your regime to nothing, getting destroyed, basically, which is going to happen. Even if they win, if you win against Israel, you're going to catch a nuke. That's not fun. There's really not a win-win for Iran besides continuing to let Israel degrade itself in the region and letting the West degrade itself. I know it's not fancy, it's not flashy, it looks like weakness, but again, I always think, guys, think in terms of decades and centuries. Think about what your kids are going to be inheriting. Don't think about what some politician in some faraway country is going to say about how weak you are for not responding. You're fighting a war. You're constantly fighting a war. Geopolitics is just this war. Sometimes it becomes kinetic, but most of the time it's just diplomacy, right? But you're always in a war with your competitors. And if you do exactly what your competitors want, like Ukraine wants Russia to just probably nuke them, honestly, at this point. If they do that, there are going to be severe, stark consequences for the Russians that are unforeseeable, that will change the equation, and that could lose to a strategic Russian defeat. The Russians don't want that. They are winning right now. They know they're winning. They know they have the mathematics on their side, in terms of manpower, in terms of equipment, in terms of production, all of that. Why change it? Same goes for Iran. Iran, yes, you're losing people, you're losing generals, you're losing IRGC guys, you're being embarrassed, but Israel is at war with Hamas. So it is embarrassing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish it. But in 15 years, is anybody going to remember it? Is anybody going to remember it? People barely remember the Lebanon bombing of the U.S. barracks in Lebanon. People barely remember that. In the U.S., people who should care about it barely remember it. People barely remember like Soleimani when he got killed. People barely remember that. And that was just a few years ago. So you guys just got to remember that the Iranian path to victory is by playing time, probably. I don't know the inner workings of the Iranian economy, all that. There could be a collapse in a minute. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, geostrategically, if Iran does something that ignites a war in the Middle East, Iran probably loses that war. Israel also probably loses. There won't really be a winner. But if Iran wants to win, I see their way to victory being a restrained response that sends a message but doesn't allow Israel to escalate into a full-scale war. That's my personal opinion on it. We'll see what happens. If a war, I don't really care about the region at all. So I'm not Jewish. I'm not Muslim. I care about it in the grander geostrategic perspective. Okay. If you were an officer of Cersei's staff, what advice would you give him about what to do in Donbass? Realistically, besides negotiations, I don't know. I think that the situation they're in, that this is probably the best thing that they could have done. Attack on a very weak point in the line, try to cause massive chaos. Because I mean, just imagine if they would have reached the nuclear power plant, that would have changed the face of the conflict for sure. The Russians would not have been able to deal with that. That would have achieved a stark escalation that would have warranted a massive response. And that I think was the goal. That failed. Now they're going to hold this, and it's just going to be a crinky, like that guy said, crinky, tripped so Kursk could face plant. Or let's see, what did he say? Crinky tripped so that Kursk may face plant. Yeah, again, quality quote there. If I was one of Xerxes' generals, I'd be getting the fuck out of Ukraine. That's what I would be doing. I would be taking any opportunity to go and do something in Poland and then run away forever. That's what I would do. All right, I think I have one more article that I wanted to talk about real fast. And that is it for today, boys. No, I do not, actually. There was only those two. All right, if you guys have a couple more questions, I'll give it like 2 or 3 more minutes here. If you guys want to get some questions in, I'll answer those. Also, this is like I have a big nose, so I like to drink out of drinks like this because my nose gets in the way. I guess I could tip back more, but that's way better. What are the available? What are ways available to the Ukrainians for crossing the Oskil River? They have a bunch of tiny crossings all along the river. So all of the bridges have basically been taken out, but you can see that this river is not very long. It's fordable in some areas. It's tiny. Some areas it's very wide. Like right here would be very hard to cross, but right here would be much easier to cross. Not saying you're going to cross into that, but there's places to cross along the whole river where the river gets very shallow. It can be crossed. You just set up pontoon bridges and cross it in any of these areas where it's tight, you know. Well, first off, I was born in the U.S., so I mean, most of people from my generation are. So yeah. Is Challenger the worst NATO tank? Yes, for sure. It's a piece of shit. I mean, there might be worse NATO tanks, but in terms of like the big ones, like Leopard, Abrams, Challenger, we can talk about the Merkava from Israel. And the T-90, yeah, the Challenger is by far the biggest piece of shit. Yeah, and the Challenger 3 is going to be even heavier too. Was Sersky killed in an Iskander attack today? Always just assume no. If it ends up happening, then it ends up happening. But those are usually just rumors. I heard Ukraine use F-16s in the Kursk region. Is this true? I highly doubt it. I don't think that they've been using them hardly at all. I think they're actually very afraid of using them because they're going to be such a high-value target. We've been seeing the Ukrainians use MiG-29s in the Kursk region, or at least over the Sumy region, supporting operations in the Kursk region, and we've seen actually one get shot down. We got an obituary for a pilot who died in the Sumy region. So, yeah. No, they're very scared to use those F-16s, and they're probably only going to be used for air defense means. Thank you for being the only Ukraine war YouTuber that regularly answers questions. I appreciate that. No problem. I think the community is like the most important thing because the whole reason I do this is just so you guys have proper information to make, be opinionated yourselves and be educated and not have just be regurgitating CNN garbage. Like, I don't expect you guys to believe me. I try to present factual, logical arguments and present evidence as best I can. But I'm wrong sometimes, and I can be wrong, and I have my own biases. So please, guys, just take the information I'm saying and listen to it. And if it makes sense to you logically, maybe incorporate that into some of your own analysis and some of your own your own perspective on the war. But I'm not an expert. I'm not 100% right. I'm just an aggregator of news. So I'm just going to present you with a kind of a story, I guess, that I built together to make you guys understand to help you guys to understand what's going on in Ukraine. And if I say something wrong, I'm really sorry. I'm never trying to lie to you guys. I'm not doing this for money. I've never done this for money. I think you guys know that very, very clearly. I was doing this for a year before I was making a cent, and I'll do it forever after until if I'm not making any money because I love doing it so much. So I really appreciate it, and thank you for watching me today. Will Poland end up with part of Ukraine? I almost guarantee it. They want it. There's no reason that Ukraine should even have it. You can thank Stalin for that and Lenin for that. They were really good at creating culture wars and ethnic issues, and they were really excellent at doing that when creating these countries. So if you look at Ukraine, it has a Russian population, it has a Hungarian, a Romanian, a Polish, and a Ukrainian population. All of those populations are fighting each other. The Polish, the Volyn Holocaust, the Holocaust that was perpetrated in Volyn and in Poland by Ukrainians. That sort of stuff is really good for the Soviet Union, right? If you look at Uzbekistan and Tajikistan and all those places in East Asia, it's like a puzzle piece. It's like wrapped around each other. They cut off water from each other. They cut off resources from each other. They took pieces of land that traditionally belonged to one group and put it into a separate country, isolating them, making that an issue, because you can always turn these countries in the Soviet Union against each other instead of having these countries rebel together against you, right? Against Russia in the Soviet Union. So while very evil, Stalin was a political genius. Okay, I see this a lot, and this is not what my channel is about, and I don't want people to think this is what my channel is about, but you guys know that, like, it has a purpose, right? It's not just a Jewish thing. I know that the Jewish people do it, but it serves a very, very important purpose, especially before everybody was showering every day. There was a lot of venereal diseases that are very easily passed when you have a foreskin, right? It traps stuff. So the reason why you circumcise kids is because it really does tremendously prevent both infections and venereal disease spread. The more you know. Welcome to my Ukraine channel where we talk about circumcision for some reason. Hungary and Romania too. Yes, there are, the Transcarpathian region of Ukraine is Hungarian, and then there is also a Romanian portion of the country. Same with Moldova. Moldova has, it had Russians, it had Romanians. It was traditionally Romania. It's a whole thing. You are definitely one of the best doing videos on Russia and Ukraine. Keep up the good work, Scott. That sounds biased, but I appreciate it. I'm gonna assume that you actually hate me and you're just giving me a compliment, and I really appreciate that. Let's see. Is that why Crimea was put in Ukraine? It makes sense, right? You have Crimean Tatars down there. It's another area that is just a problem. It's just another problem spot in terms of the cohesiveness of the Ukrainian state. The ability for the Ukrainian state to do what it is doing right now, because right now, the whole Polish, Romanian, like it's now it doesn't matter as much. But back in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s in Eastern Europe, it was a pretty big deal. There was a lot of ethnic superiority. I mean, we saw we saw some of it in like Serbia and stuff like that. We continue to see it with Kosovo and that sort of area. So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on, and it's a very easy way to maintain control if you're a state controlling a very large swath of land. I read through some of your jokes, and I'm not going to put them on screen, but I laugh at them sometimes. Wait, what? Sure, let it happen to females. When you do it to females, guys, it doesn't serve any purpose other than sensation reduction, which is a way of trying to keep women from cheating on their husbands. Female circumcision doesn't have any benefits. So no, that is a completely wrong comparison there. No, yeah, and again, I mean, if you have one or you don't have one, you know the benefits to each, right? It does come with desensitization for men, but I would rather not have a yeast infection down there or whatever, regularly, semi-regularly or whatever, because and I'm not talking about now. Obviously, you can take showers. It doesn't matter now. It's just sort of a cultural thing now, but back in the day. It's definitely not for religious nut jobs. I'm telling you that my mom is a cardiac. Oh my God, I can't speak. Cardiac rehabilitation nurse, and she worked in the ICU and everything. She's been a nurse for 30 years, and she has told me time and time again, she's not religious. I'm not religious. It has nothing to do with religion. It just has to do with sanitation, honestly. Scott Ritter is saying that Kursk was a gift, i.e., lots of prizes and crack troops for Russians to. That's cope. That's fucking cope. Scott Ritter has been coping the entire war. I don't. That's cope. That this was a good tactical advance by the Ukrainians. The Russians are benefiting from it, from offensive operations. But to say it was a trap like that, that's a cope. That's such a cope. What do you think will happen to Transnistria? I think that it's going to be a very difficult solution for Moldova. I think once, if the Russians don't get Odessa and don't cross the Dnieper, which I think is possible, I think it'll settle down. I don't think it's going to be such a big deal. I think it's just a big deal right now because there's an active war going on. Now, if the Russians do cross and capture Odessa, I'm sure Transnistria will be captured because there's an active Russian force holding it. So what I have to do is open up one side of the border and the Russians will just walk right in. I don't know if they will, I don't know if they will. They might try to annex it or do something different. I don't know what they're going to necessarily attempt to do, but right now it seems like it's sort of a non-issue. People have stopped talking about it. So just a lifelong interest has given your expertise. Yeah, I would just say studying. I mean, all wars, all battles for my entire life. That's something I was very much into. My dad was reading me like Panzer Aces and stuff like that when I was a kid. That's what I grew up with. Was like listening to or watching the what was that? It's always on the History Channel. They have like the dogfight. My dad was always watching that. He was into Squad Leader, all of that. So my entire life, I don't know if you guys know what Squad Leader is. It's these massive tabletop games. I don't think I'm autistic, but I very well could be. I don't know. I communicate very well with people and I understand social cues and everything. So I don't know if that's considered autism, but the hyper focus and the other stuff that comes along with autism, yeah, I definitely got that. Squad Leader, anyway, is a tabletop game. I watched my dad do a Battle of Moscow, which was a 2-week long battle that they did on. They had 4 tables that were pushed together and this huge map. It was really, really cool. And that's just sort of what got me interested. And in terms of Ukraine, I've been following Ukraine since 2013. I was in high school when I was watching the Odessians get burned alive, and I was in high school. I remember I was in anthropology class when Maidan finally culminated and what's his name left for Russia. So it's been a huge part of my life for the past 10 years now, at least, looking at 11. So yeah, in terms of studying, I would say I probably have more knowledge of Ukraine than most other people. I would be in the 99th percentile. Alex Mercurius claimed that he had a source that's saying that Russia knew of the Kursk operation. Oh, I fully believe that the Russians knew about the Kursk operation because if we go over to the map, like I was talking about, the Belarusians left. These units were moved to the Sumy region. There were some units moved from Chasiv Yar, which we had reports of before the operation began. The Russian strikes in this region increased dramatically over the week leading up to this. I think they knew something was coming. But again, if you're the Ukrainians, you can stage a bunch of guys here and never do anything with them, force the Russians to bring a bunch of assets into this region, and then attack somewhere else, attack up through the Chernigov region, attack over here. The thing about attacking here is that there's no strategic objective within what? Let's see, of the border, you're talking about 60 to 80 kilometers before you're reaching a strategic objective. With Ukraine's force disposition and available reserves, there's no way that's going to happen. That's why the whole time I've been racking my brain trying to figure out what it was. If the Ukrainians were just trying to force a Russian reserve rotation, they failed. If they were trying to secure a large objective, they failed. If they were trying to make this a PR publicity stunt, they succeeded wildly. So those are the two things. But the PR doesn't win you the war. It might extend the war a little bit, but the reality on the ground and the issues you're facing do not go away because the news gets better. All right. How difficult do you think it will be to take back Toretsk? Nobody's lost Toretsk. Do you mean the Russians take it back? I think the battles for these cities are going to become easier and easier and easier, and soon you're just going to see cities and towns falling. You already see daily Ukrainian villages are being captured by the Russians, but now it's going to be like Hordivka is going to fall next week, and you're going to be like, how did that happen? And then the Russians are going to be in Pokrovsk, and you're going to be like, what is happening? And then the Russians are going to be in Chasiv Yar, and then the Russians are going to be in Kupiansk, and then you're going to be. It's going to start. It's just dominoes. Autist equals prioritizing truth without purpose, reality for its own sake. Well, then, yes, I have autism. Oh, no. I just got diagnosed. I hate how if you are really into anything, people say you have autism. Yeah, I know. But also, I mean, I do a map. I do a map for this. I do geolocations for this. I do I've tweeted, let's see, how many times have I tweeted here? I've tweeted 56,000 times. So if anybody's going to be labeled a possible autist, it could definitely be me. I'm not mad by that. How are you, Zo? Zhao? Zo? Let's see. One of the Kursk salient collapses. Once the Kursk salient collapses, would it make sense for the AFRF open a new front in the northwestern region? I think that they're going to have to open a front in the northwestern region. I don't know if it's going to happen immediately after. As soon as the opportunity presents itself, I think the east is the goal right now. I think if the east collapses, the Russians will force a surrender from the Ukrainians, and they probably won't even have to go into the northern region to gain it. It's ironic how much all of the Europeans want to get rid of the Ukrainians after only 2 years. It's almost as if the Russians knew more about something than the rest of the world. I know. Yeah, no. Like I said, the West doesn't give a shit about Ukraine. Didn't care about Ukraine last week. Only cares about Ukraine because it has something to do with their geostrategic interests, right? They're going to pretend, but they're not. It's not real. Scott is on his third girlfriend during the SMO because of his dedication. Let me think. No, I had 2 girlfriends for a period of time, for a year and a half through the SMO, and then just one of those girlfriends now. One stayed. So I just have had 2 girlfriends throughout the SMO. Yes, at the same time. And it was a fucking nightmare. They were both into me. They weren't into each other. They didn't get along very well. They fought like cats. And yeah, it lasted a year and a half. And it was so stressful on me 24/7. I had to watch my language. I had to do everything. Would not suggest it, but it was fun. Sometimes it was fun. Should Ukraine exist as a state? Yes, I think Ukraine should exist as a state. I think Ukraine should be the whole state that it was before 2014. I think that the U.S. Destabilize the situation in the country politically and use that to create a proxy to fight Russia. So I think Ukraine should be Russia's best friend and neighbor, and that's not what ended up happening. Well, it's just a girlfriend now. It's just one now. My girlfriend now finds my political views autistic and boring. She's just not so invested into politics like I am. So it kind of makes her anxious when people start fighting and stuff. Like she hears me on spaces sometimes or debates, and she like has to like leave the room because she starts like interjecting because she gets upset on my behalf. She's just not cut out for it. But she kind of falls in line with most of my political views, I would think. But I'm also so middle of the ground on a lot of things, and I just present like kind of logical arguments, so it's kind of hard to not agree with me sometimes. I just look up autism, what autism is. It's worded more vaguely. According to my definition, everyone of us has autism. Yeah, autism is a spectrum, my guy. And when everybody wants to play victim, everybody can have autism. Everybody can have PTSD. Everybody can have depression, anxiety. It's awesome. That's something that I've always thought is funny is like, I think that I've been actually clinically depressed before. And it was during the SMO, actually. It was like 2 years ago. No, it was about a year ago. And like something was just wrong in my brain and I couldn't get things going and I was sluggish and I was just sad. And I literally stopped and I was like, I think I'm depressed. And then I just started doing things trying to change that. And eventually I changed it. But it's so crazy how everybody complains about depression and anxiety. Like I said in my last stream, depression is dwelling in the past. Anxiety is fixating on the future that you can't control, and happiness is living in the present. Babe, I'm horny. Stop doing stupid maps and come to bed. It's not even a joke. It's not even that meme is a real meme. Last night, so I'm in a bedroom right now. We have like kind of like two master bedrooms in this house, and we have a bed in here, but we don't ever use this room for anything. It's just like a spare room. And she was sitting here last night, and she was smoking weed, and she was like, can we please go to bed? And I was like, I gotta just do like 3 or 4 more map updates real quick. Like I gotta just do some stuff. And she was just, can we go? Can we go? It's just so funny that you say that, dude. That's excellent. Recently told someone like they covered the entire spectrum 6 times over. Was that Intel Schizo? Yes. Probably not bench press with my shoulder right now, but definitely squat. Yeah. Yeah, you can feel drained just having depression, or yeah, it sucks, man. When it's like you wake up and like nothing, it's just like your brain can't interpret things the way it's supposed to. So you just are like broken. It's weird. But also, you can change the chemicals in your brain usually, whether it's by drugs, by visiting a doctor, or by just changing what you're doing, changing your entire situation. And you have to do that because nobody else is going to do it for you. At least the benefit of a Ukrainian males, if they survive the war, is there'll be less competition in the dating scene. Yeah, bro. The ratio is going to go wild in Ukraine. It's going to be insane. Yeah. Sorry, babe. The Twitter followers do need me. Yeah. Bro, it's one girl. You think I'm going to let the homies not know what's going on because of a girl? Huh? No way. No way. Not going to happen. She hates it too because I wake up. I'm on this weird schedule where I'll wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, like clockwork, to get up because that's when the news comes out, and I'll always wake her up, and she gets upset. Sadly, no. Until Schizo covers at least 12. Was that a NAFO dude? Yeah, he was a NAFO dude at one time. He loves talking about trains. I love him to death, but he just focuses on the absolute wrong parts of any debate and just tangentializes into Nowheresville. It's crazy. Are the pictures? So this is a good topic. We did see a massive surrender at the very beginning. And what has happened since then is that the Ukrainians are taking those same POWs around. I'm not saying that there aren't extra POWs being captured, but they've posted like 5 or 6 pictures with 60 plus, 40 plus guys, and they're like, another batch has been captured. That's not true. That's the same group that's just being pictured in different areas. Don't fall for the information war. That's what they're winning right now. The Ukrainians are winning the information war in Kursk. Getting awfully misogynistic. No, see, that's the thing is I'm not misogynistic. I think men and women are equal except in driving skills. But I see I treat women so equally that my one girlfriend is not equal to my 137,000 bros on Twitter that need my updates. Manly things cure depression. Yep, I went back to the gym. I had stopped going to the gym, actually. That's actually, I think, kind of what had brought it on. I stopped going to the gym because my shoulder got messed up and I was just not feeling very good. I got sick and I was puking a lot for a stretch of time. I lost a bunch of weight. And I think that's sort of where the depression kind of hit because I stopped going to the gym. So yeah, guys, get out and do something. Guys, specifically. Girl depression might be the same thing. Get out and do something, but I'm not a girl, so I can't speak to girl depression. Get out and just go punch a bag. Go punch a rock. Do something. Yeah, I just saw that a second Patriot got hit. Yep. I'll be posting that in the new demonetized next time. That came out while we were filming our demonetized episode today. So also an Iris T was hit today. In the last 36 hours, the Ukrainians have lost 4 HIMARS, potentially 4 Patriot Tells, which would be a Patriot battery, an Iris-T system, a MiG-29, 2 MiG-29s, and a number of self-propelled guns. So the losses for the highbrow losses, I would say, for the Ukrainians in this operation have been outstanding, just unbelievable. I don't think the Patriot was in this region, though, to be fair. Yeah, I don't think the Patriot was in the Sumy region. I think I'm actually absolutely sure it was down here in Dnipropetrovsk at the airfield here. I think this one. Yeah. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not the international airport. I know somebody claimed it was the international airport, and then I saw one that said Dnieper airfield, which I don't know if there's a difference. But yeah, so that's where the Patriots were hit today. It's also where the MiG-29 was hit on the ground. There was a MiG-29 taken out over here doing a sortie, and then there was a SU or a MiG-29 that I think was also taken out at Mihrad Airport, which I think is up here. Where is it? I don't think it's that one. But anyway, it was somewhere in this region, I believe. Sorry. Got a little distracted. Yep, all about diet. Garbage in, garbage out. That's true. If you guys don't even have to go to the gym, just start eating good. If you start eating good, your bodies are going to change so much for the better. I cut out a lot of sugar out of my diet because I love juice. Like, my favorite thing is juice. Sunny D, bro. Welch's, get it over here. Simply Made? Are you fucking kidding me? I could drink a gallon of juice a day, no problem. Juice was my shit when I was a kid. It's awesome. Liquid calories are the bee's knees, but I stopped drinking it as much as I have in Arizona with lemon flavor. Let's see how much sugar's in this. Only 32 grams of added sugar, guys. We're good. Let's see. Yes. Scott, have any Russian air bases been struck? Yes. 2 have been struck up in the Kursk region. We saw both, I don't know where exactly up here, but we saw 2 ammunition depots get struck by drones on base. One resulted in the destruction of an Su-34. But other than that, just the ammunition warehouses at those bases. Yeah, Simply Made fruit punch is crack. It is. It is. It's literally the best thing anybody has ever experienced in their entire life. And if you don't think that, you're probably a fascist. Get out of my chat. You know what I'm saying? Operators surviving the plane and armor losses. I mean, not the ones in Kursk. Yeah, 32 grams, buddy. It's also 22 fluid ounces, so it's quite large. Get out, then. All right. Bro is still talking about circumcisions. I'm done with that. Which Ukrainian war tubers do you look up to? Do I look up to? I don't know if I look up to any of them. There are ones that I think are better than others, but I mean, I don't really. I think everybody's kind of got their own niche and their own sort of, like, I really like doing these super long live streams where I get to talk to you guys. I think that's way more interesting for me. It's better for you. I do my little spiel. I get the information I need to get out, and then I let you guys talk. That works really well for me. Some people just like to do their videos where they get their information out. I thought about doing that, but I just don't get as much enjoyment out of it, right? It does take a lot more time to do this, but I don't really care. I like doing it. But in terms of YouTubers, I like the Duran. I don't think that they're always exactly correct, and I think they're very biased and all that. But but so is everybody. That's not a critique of them. That's just of everybody. It's why I don't necessarily look up to YouTubers, is because I have my own opinions and my own biases about what I think is happening and what I think should happen. So when I hear other people talk, it's probably like when you guys hear me talk. I say things that don't register with you. If the majority of what I says registers, then you stick around and you listen to me and you think I know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, then you're going to leave, right? So like the Duran, I can watch the Duran. I watch the Duran. I get a lot of their stuff. Brian Berletic. Yeah, Brian Berletic is a good one. Brian Berletic is a YouTuber that I actually look up to. That is, I don't have respect for a ton of people. I think respect is something that is earned. It's not something that you just have for somebody upon meeting somebody. I think that you are respectful of people. I think that you're nice, but I don't think everybody necessarily just gets your respect. I think it's earned, just like trust. And Brian Berletic has my absolute respect for what he does. He is so against even being noticed for it. He has built his entire platform off of his knowledge and off of his delivery, and not he doesn't play the algorithm game. He doesn't do that shit, and he's huge for it. So yeah, Brian is the homie. Yeah. After 2 years, the Europeans want to get rid of all Ukrainians despite... Wait, hold on. Where did my thing go? Damn, that sucks. Apparently the Russians knew more. Oh, I already read this one. What do you think about the bridge over the Simi River in the Bogged area destroyed by the airfield? I think that they're struggling because the Russians are able to rotate all of it, enough reserves into the region. So they decided that they're not going to be able to cross that bridge. They need to destroy that bridge. You don't destroy bridges that you plan on crossing, right? So, yeah, Brian Berletic is Agent 47. Yep. He is the legend, man. He is a real good guy. He was, when I was nobody. I didn't have experience. I didn't have anything. That dude helped me so much get my platform off the ground. I owe him so much. He is a great guy, and he saw, I don't know if he just saw something in me, enjoyed the conversation, but it was, yeah, he's awesome. Nothing but good words for that guy. He has never done a single thing to like even minorly upset me in any way. It's crazy. You hate history legends with a passion. Just his face alone. I don't know. I think History Legends does a good job. His videos are entertaining, right? That's. I think he does. I think he does a good job providing content. That's what he's really good at. He puts amazing videos together that I just can't. I'm so bad at editing. Have you guys seen my thumbnails recently? All me, baby. All me. I spend 20 minutes in Adobe trying to put something together. A 4-year-old made it for his, or a second grader made it in his computer class. Maybe it's an unsaid sexual attraction with Brian. It's a said sexual attraction. I find Brian extremely attractive. Are you kidding me? I look at him and I see I see a little bit older me, maybe younger. Brian actually kind of looks younger than me. I aged horribly. Yes, he is. He's a French Canadian sensationalist, right? But that's how he presents information. He's not some boring mapper who sits here and goes, the Russians advanced in this area and they advanced here and then they're going to advance there. No, he's giving a whole like story. Like he's providing a different service than me. You think that this is a lie? Hold on just a second. I mean, you might think it's like a Romanian F-16, but I mean, we have proof. So it's not like, hold on, I'm looking for it real fast. We have proof, so it's not like a secret or anything. I do believe the Ukrainians have F-16s, and I think that they're very afraid to use the very limited number they have for anything because of what it's. All right, here it is. Because of what it means for the U.S. military-industrial complex, and you know they're the ones who gave it to them, and what it means for a lot of different things. So here's an F-16 flying over Odessa. So the Ukrainians are definitely there's definitely F-16s over Ukraine. Whether you think that that is a foreign F-16 or a Ukrainian F-16 doesn't really make any difference. Do you think that if there was a collapse in Kursk, Russia would retreat from Donbass to save the situation? No. No, I think if there was an actual collapse in Kursk, the situation would have escalated rapidly and it would have been very bad for Ukraine very quickly. Because removing troops from the east, I mean, maybe that would have happened, but I think you would have seen a massive conscript army flood in and just push the Ukrainians out. Not counting losses, not worried about anything, just getting it done. I think that's what you would have seen if there would have been anything. But that wasn't necessary, so we didn't end up seeing that. Yeah, we definitely rub heads. This, guys. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. They conscript. I don't know. I think it's biannually they conscript, and I think it's 150,000 men each time. So it's either 150,000 in the year or 300,000 for the year. I can't remember. But then they stay in for a year, and there's this constant rotating of conscripts back into civilian life and civilians into conscript life. But it's why mobilization was so easy for the Russians in September. The 300,000 that they mobilized was like that because they were all reserves. They had all just been in the military. It's 300,000 a year, yeah. So two at different times. Why do I think Scott Ritter's house got raided? Because I think that he is a high-level U.S. Diplomat or a former high-level U.S. diplomat, and in a way, not a diplomat necessarily, but he was doing the arms agreement stuff. I think that he has a very influential position to talk from. I don't know about all the kid stuff. Personally, I have a hard time trusting my government. And somebody in Scott Ritter's position saying the things he's saying about the United States, basically exposing the WMD lies, exposing a lot of different stuff, is a really easy way to get put on a shit list. And the easiest way to get everybody to look at you like you're a disgusting monster is to be called a pedophile. So I'm not saying that's what happens. There are plenty of adults that have predilections towards children. I'm not making any claim in that direction, but that's kind of the same thing. It looks like harassment to me, right? So that's just what it seems like to me. Not the pedo stuff. I'm not making any claim about that. That all that stuff is completely removed. I'm just saying if you were trying to make somebody look like a total piece of shit, that's the easiest way to do it. I have a hard time associating with him, and I'm the one here saying that it might not be true, right? So it's like it's a hard thing. Yeah, you can't. It's hard. It's when you get accused of touching kids, man. It's just yeah. If you wanted to destroy somebody, seriously, make that claim of them. That's why I have a hard time with it, just because of his high profile. But again, there are monsters everywhere. So he's toast. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he's really that impactful. So I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Yeah, exactly. Who believes the establishment news? And that's where it came from. Yeah, he's a registered sex offender, but do you know what he's a registered sex offender for? Because he never came into contact with kids. He was apparently messaging inappropriately, but again, all of that can be faked, and that's his claim. Not saying that that's true. I'm just saying all of that can be faked, and it happened in like 2008. So it's way easier to fake that kind of stuff. Way easier, right? It's if you just it's not a difficult. It's a sting operation. You can create it, and if it's somebody who's an enemy of the state, do you put it past them doing it to them? No, I don't either. But again, I'm not going to start associating or doing anything of that nature because it's not helpful to me, and I don't think that Scott Ritter has been right very often throughout this conflict, so I don't even think it really matters. Yeah, talking to police without a lawyer, he is retarded. That is so stupid. That is so stupid. This is the stupidest fucking thing you can do. Guys, even if you're guilty, if you're not guilty, get a lawyer. They just protect you. They just protect you from incriminating yourself, even if you didn't do something to incriminate yourself with. That's how people get railroaded. That's how low IQ people get railroaded into like wrongful murder convictions and stuff like that. They'll keep you in a box for like 48 hours, not give you any food or anything, and these dumb people end up confessing to stuff that they've never done. Calibrated has Zuzda fallen. It is still contested, and is Kornevo now the target in Kursk? It's always been the target. It was the initial target, and they're failing to reach it. She was a police officer online, and really obvious was of age, but had a small fine print that she was 15 to 17. Okay, so yeah, and also again, yeah, I just. Do you know my son Gaden? Imagine spending all of this time doing this. Also, my mom's a redhead. Wrong. Got it wrong. Spending all of this time to troll me like this just to actually make me laugh and then for me to have content to make fun of you for is awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your commitment to me. That's all this shows to me is that you like me so much in some twisted way where you think you hate me that you go out of your way to spend time focusing on me. I won. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mom. Yeah. Let's see. Scott's mom. You are a cool dude. No, I'm not. I'm just a dork. I'm an autistic dork online. That's all I am. It's all good. Ginger, I hope. Redheads are subpar. She's actually not a traditional redhead. She dyes her hair, but it looks regular, so she's kind of a sneaky ginger. All right. Hour and 30 minutes. Holy shit. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for the conversation. It was fun talking to you guys. I appreciate. I'm a 5'5" dork. Excuse me. Has this guy never seen me? Has this guy not ever seen me? I'm 6'4", buddy. I'm gigantic. There, I'll give you a comparison. Here's a protein shaker next to my head. Somebody can probably do the next to my body. Somebody can probably do the scale comparison. Autist, go. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you. Or I will see you soon. I don't know if I'm going to do one tomorrow. Depends on if there's enough information. Thank you guys so much. Be sure to go look for that demonetized episode. It is being posted right now after this. It is a long one. It is another hour and 30 minutes. So be sure to go check that out if you guys are looking for some more content. Thank you all so much. I very much appreciate you. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you enjoyed your stay here, Tell people about it. I don't know if anybody else is even around you that you can tell this about, because I feel like I can't tell anybody about this shit, but tell people about it and get it spread. Thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic weekend. Be safe. I love you all.